Hey there everyone! Happy August! This is Zoe giving you another Night Bunny vlog update. I wanted to start this one off by letting you know that unless I hear some noise about it, I'm going to be sunsetting my email newsletters. Ever since I started doing these vlogs, I've noticed a significant drop in the sort of metrics I would get on the email newsletters, which weren't a lot to begin with. So, and it's a lot of work to be doing both. So I'm going to stop doing those. Like I said, unless there's some like big reason people want them around, even though they don't look at them. Um, and I'm still going to keep that mailing list, but I'm going to use it specifically for bigger updates. Like if I'm actually publishing something, maybe I'll send a newsletter if I make a bunch of games like I did this month. I'll figure it out, but I'm going to make them less frequent and less all-encompassing as these vlogs are. Okay, good deal? Cool, thanks for sticking with me. So, let's get right into the game updates, because that was the only logistical stuff. So, I actually had a whole lot of new projects this month. For example, Buttonshy is doing that 18-card dinosaur challenge where it can be dinosaurs fighting or like a modern-day dinosaur park, which snore. I mean, sorry. No offense. People love that stuff, but I don't make games where you fight people, at least not overtly. Anyways, I felt inspired to make a party RPG called VelociRapture, where you play as dinosaurs coping during their last minutes before extinction by playing human games. Lately, or I don't know, I often feel somewhat overwhelmed by the state of the world. Um, Climate change in particular feels like a looming possibility that I have to consider for myself and also my child and her future. So it could sometimes feel a bit overwhelming to consider the possibility that we may be facing our own extinction in the near future. But I found that I would sort of find peace when I consider the fact that even though we as humanity, the species, are quite fragile, all things considered, we actually haven't been on Earth as long as the dinosaurs have, okay? Like, they outlasted us and they are still extinct. We may be, fragile, but the Earth itself is, resilient. And it may take, millions or billions of years, but life will prosper on this planet. And if not, if Earth gets obliterated, there will be a new planet that will hit some Goldilocks zone. There'll be life. It'll be fine. The universe will continue and life will find a way, as they say. So, that's something that gives me calm. I drew inspiration from this idea. I think I may have picked it up from Alan Watson. But I also picked up a lot of inspiration from the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once. There's this very optimistic nihilism found in that movie that I think is really beautiful. And so I wanted to put that in a silly 18-card dinosaur game. So because dinosaurs are such a revered species and they're kind of known for this very traumatic extinction traumatic, they were able to experience trauma from it, this extinction event. So it seems ideal for that topic. So yes, anyways, this dinosaur game. So in VelociRapture, the only important rule is that the cards have a dino orientation, which is for your character that you're going to be role-playing. And that orientation just lists a coping mechanism for your dinosaur. And then in other orientations, you treat the card as a human card, where all it has is a little rock or paper or scissors icon, and a number from 2 to 7, so total of 18 cards. So when the cards are oriented like dino cards, they just represent your personal dinosaur that you're inhabiting and how you're coping as that dinosaur. And Otherwise, the cards act as components for the human game that the dinosaurs are playing. That's the only important rule. The game that the dinosaurs are playing, not important at all, actually. It's not important that the dinosaurs even play by the rules. And so what's important is how the dinosaurs cope. Some of the dinosaurs are coping by trying to play the game very seriously. Some of the dinosaurs are coping by trying to help others win. Some of them are trying to invent new house rules. So that's like the basic premise of the game. Playtests at Protospiel went really well. There was a unique experience where I found that I needed to reduce the structure of the game significantly. People had a tendency to over-fixate on the minigame's rules. I initially started by including it as part of the teach. Like, I explained the dino cards, and then I would, like, explain, like, and then you're playing this, like, minigame, this rock, paper, scissors minigame. And I'd explain all the rules of it, and then they'd sort of just play that minigame. And so I had to, like, and they were, like, making sure that they were playing it right. So I had to, like, reduce the significance of that minigame. I had to, like, make sure that the players knew not to respect it. So I had to, like, cut it like smaller, make it more condensed. I eventually took the entire minigame and put it onto a single card. And the single card is even marked up with, like, notes from the dinosaurs calling it broken and stuff. And that was when eventually the players started to get it. But the consequence of this is that because I had to separate like the general teach of the game from these minigame rules, players started to internalize those minigame rules, like the rules themselves, as part of the game. And when the game itself only comes with like one set of mini rules that you're like reading during this like this real-time timer, that I forgot to mention the game has a real-time timer because there's a comet coming to like obliterate you all. So there's like a literal timer, and when the time is up, then the game stops. So during that time, they're just like trying to interpret these rules, and the players found a lot of joy in that, and like analyzing these rules that were clearly ambiguous and clearly unreliable. But as a consequence, they felt like, doesn't this game have no replay value? Like, isn't this like you interpreted the rules and then that's the end of the game? And that was never my intention. It was never about the rules and deciphering the rules. That was just a tool to get players to disrespect the rules. It wouldn't matter if they came in with a perfect understanding of how the minigame was supposed to be played, as long as they understood that it didn't matter. But that was the only way to convey it. But it did bring up an interesting idea that I'm going to be experimenting with the next iteration, where the cards not only have the coping mechanism and the human card, but they also have rules for our entire game. So basically, this 18 card game would come with 18 mini games, one on each card, and one of the cards would act as the rules for the mini game that the dinosaurs are playing. I think it might work out because it would give the sort of it would give that at least that illusion of replayability, but it would also create like this. It would really cement the idea that these rules don't matter so much. The minigame does not matter so much. It's chaotic. Like, there's a lot of brokenness to it. You can't even like go into it knowing exactly what kind of game you're going to be experiencing. So I'm excited to try it out. I actually already have several mini games planned out. And yeah. So that's one of the projects I made. For the Trans Joy Jam, which was a game jam designed to celebrate trans and the joy from being trans, which, in case you didn't know, I'm trans. So I was feeling a bit inspired by the concept of deck builders and how they invoke this feeling of identity. And so I decided I want to revisit Paige Against the Machine, and which I was never able to like really nail down like mechanics for. And I spent weeks trying to design an asymmetric sort of puzzle engine builder, deck builder that's just using playing cards. And after 2 weeks, I was like, oh, I'll just use the idea that I had at first. So back to sort of like an unraveled logic puzzle, but instead of like the information is revealed to Paige, but the cost is that Paige has currency that they're using to buy it. So the initial, and well, first of all, Paige Against the Machine is a game where you are a shapeshifter exploring your identity with the assistance of a parasitic machine, like an algorithm. And part of the reason I was really uncomfortable with this concept of like unraveled sort of mechanics is because I was really uncomfortable with the idea of the machine winning and Paige just failing to deduce their identity, because that is a very depressing sort of scenario to imagine. But I did find out a way to sort of address that in a way that was satisfactory to me. The way I'm doing that is by taking it in an extremely art house sort of direction. So in Paige Against the Machine, the player who plays as the machine is the one who's like familiar with the rules. They see behind the veil in like every sense of the word. They know Paige's true form. They understand the mechanics of the entire game. They know like, yeah, they basically understand everything. Whereas Paige just goes into the game knowing that they can buy forms and they might get joy from it. And joy is one of the like ways that Paige gets points. The machine is understanding that Paige has a true form and that everything that Paige does is related to that true form and how close they're getting to it. And so every time Paige is getting closer to that true form, the machine is paying out joy to Paige. But the machine also knows that once Paige actually gets their true form, that they get a ridiculous amount of joy that actually blows all the joy out of the water. Like Paige is getting like 1 or 2 joy each form, and then they get the true form and it's like 100 joy. It's like, this makes the rest of the game irrelevant. So the reason I decided to go with this route is because I want to, this isn't like an attempt to model like the general queer experience, but this was like for my experience where like I was just navigating life and I didn't realize how much happier I could be. Like I had no idea the next level like life I'd have by living as my like true identity. Like it was like it was night and day. I had no idea. And so the idea is that if somebody plays as Paige and they never purchase their true form, the machine does their job and never like pulls back the curtain, then all the experience that Paige has is that they play the game and they collected some amount of points that's comparable to the score that the machine gets, and that's the end of the game. It's like a traditional sort of back and forth game. It's only if they ever purchase their true form that they sort of have their eyes open as like, oh, all those points I was getting were just clues along the way to my true form. That's actually the real like prize of this adventure. So yeah. Yeah, that's Paige Against the Machine. It hasn't been tested a lot. I'm actually already planning some changes to it, but it is available on itch.io, and it is free. So if you want to check it out, feel free. So there is another game that I made this month. Yes, a third game. I have a problem. No, you can't help me. It cannot be stopped. It's happening whether you want it to or not. There was a GenCant game jam where you had to make a game about history with hidden information, no words on the cards, and it must use ping pong balls. So, yeah. So when I heard about the ping pong ball mechanic, it made me think about the chaotic nature of like kids. And so I felt inspired to make a game where you are co-parenting and trying to guide a chaotic kid towards the kind of person that you feel like they ought to be without smothering them too much. And that's how I came up with the concept of Offspring. I want to convey how like frustrating co-parenting could be when you're working with somebody who does not perfectly align with your values. Like they may want the kid to have like may think that these qualities are what's most important in a kid, whereas you think that these qualities are like these things are most important, and sometimes those things kind of run counter to each other. So I really wanted to make a game that sort of captured that sort of like conflict, and all while keeping in mind that there's like a there's like a human at in the middle of this. So the basic idea of the game is that you're going to have a bunch of playing cards, you're going to have ping pong ball, and you're going to have like a play area that's going to be your kid's environment. And so in my case, I was using like a ring. And what you do is you set up the game by tossing a bunch of cards into that ring with like some cards face up, some cards face down. And then each player gets a card that specifies which of three suits that they want in their kid. So like either hearts, spades, or clubs. And then another suit that they don't want in their kid. Again, one of those three. And regardless of those suits, no parent wants the kid to have an excess of diamonds, which in this game represents like how much your kid was coddled. So you're basically looking for one thing more than these two other suits. And as you're playing the game, the way it works is that you take turns tossing a card into this shared environment, and then you toss a ping pong ball into it. So you could kind of toss cards into it to try to set it up so that there's more of the suit that you want. You could try to toss a card to cover like a diamond or cover up like the suit that you don't want, and try to set up like this environment where it's your like ping pong ball is most likely to land on the suit that you want. And the reason for that is because the last card that your ping pong ball touches is the one that's going to get added to your kid's deck, which is what you're going to be checking your goal against. The thing is that you could spend diamond cards to sort of force a suit into the deck instead of what they landed on, sort of like interjecting on your kid. Instead of letting them learn intrinsically, you're forcing them to learn extrinsically. You're like going like, no, 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 let me handle this, or no, 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 I'll bribe you, or like whatever. You're basically forcing against your kids like intrinsic desires to go a certain way. So at the end of that, you have a deck, and you compare it against, you check all the cards in the deck against your goal to see which parent won, and it's possible for both parents to win or lose, and either way, that deck becomes one of the players' decks in the next game, because that kid is grown up and is now co-parenting with somebody else. That's the history aspect. So yeah, it didn't get a lot of testing, but I'm actually quite pleased with how it turned out, considering I only had a weekend. But yeah, it's available on itch.io if you want to check it out. So Opacity, I put together all that work, getting like those videos and sales sheets and stuff all set up, and it did not get accepted for speed pitching. But you know what? That's fine. That makes this a good resting spot for the game. I've got all this marketing material. I understand that the game's in a good place and just needs like some serious development. So it's a good place for it to rest design-wise as I sort of try to pitch it to publishers or maybe get like some consultation on it. Yeah. In a similar vein, Unraveled has been getting some testing recently, and I'm quite happy with the direction it's going, and I'm quite happy with the state of the game. The last iteration, I have the card effects on the conspirators cards, and I've been finding that in a lot of first playtests, the conspirator sort of very minimally uses those card powers, and at first I was considering this to be a problem, but you know what? In retrospect, I think it's fine, actually, because here's the thing. A lot of the work I've been putting into Unraveled has been to address the perception of the game being solvable. Like, never was really that concerned about it, but a common piece of feedback I would get was that it seemed like the game had extremely limited shelf life because it felt like the game was solvable, sort of like tic-tac-toe or something. Despite the fact that the players had a lot of fun with it, it had this perception, and perception is important, even if it's irrational or wrong or whatever. In this case, I don't know what that was, but these card effects are to address that late game stage, and if they never use it, the game is actually perfectly playable and perfectly great, especially for a first time if you don't use those card effects. So if the conspirator is feeling overwhelmed and never uses them and still has a fun time, that's great. Next time they play, they might go like, I won by skin of my teeth, or I lost, maybe I should start using these card powers to give me an edge up. So in fact, that's what was happening in the playtest. So I'm kind of approaching a point where I similarly want to do some development, because testing with like new people and playtest swaps is not going to be that valuable if the testing I want to have done is on these later stage things that require somebody with some experience with the game. So I'm going to start putting together marketing materials, start pitching it again. I know some publishers had asked me to hit them up when I had like a better theme, and I do feel like the theme is a lot better, especially now that I put some artwork on it. So that's sort of the direction I'm taking Unraveled. Also, I recorded a playthrough of Persuasion for the BostonFig showcase. So there'll be a link for that right around right there, I think. So if you'd like to check it out, go ahead. It's condensed into about 6 minutes or so that it would still have enough time to include the sort of sizzle vid that I have existing. So if you want to see what the game sort of looks like in play, you give that a shot. I set it up with a bunch of my stuffies. I had some fun with it, I think. So, yeah. Closer. I know last time I said that I was going to be taking a break on it, but the when you have opportunities to test this game, you take them. And I got some playtests with some like critical demographics that I was curious about, and I felt like the results were really catastrophic. The thing that was most important to me about this game is that people took away that if they played aggressively and they basically like committed like consent violations within the game, that they were the horror element in the experience. And that was not coming across because I feel like people have just internalized that sometimes games are mean and have take that mechanics, and the context of the game was not strong enough to convey what people were doing, or they were able to disconnect themselves enough from that to just engage with the mechanics by themselves. And that is terrifying to me. I really don't want a game that just normalizes this stuff. It was so bad that it had me considering shelving the game. After talking with a good friend, I've been convinced that is perhaps a problem of language. And so I'm going to be trying to change around some of the words to sort of emphasize the fact that you're breaking somebody's trust rather than scratching somebody's hope, which is a little more nebulous. Breaking trust is a clear like violation. And I'm hoping that scans a bit better. I'm also thinking about, it also seems like it's a consistent thing where people are kind of overwhelmed with the cards, so I'm going to be thinking about ways to simplify the mechanics. I'm thinking about maybe like sort of condensing the whole dual nature of like when one person picks a card versus two people picking a card, maybe the playable effects. Basically, I want to simplify it. Since the like Buttonshy contest is passed, we're like no longer beholden to the whole like restrictions of the jam, but I still feel like they're a good core. There's some possibility that we might add some cards instead of having the roll and write element, but yeah. For reasons I mentioned earlier, this game is still somewhat on the back burner. Like, I really want to finish out like VelociRapture and even bread before I start working on this. I know, like, there's another game that so yeah, that's the state of things. Thanks for sticking it with me. As always, these vlogs are entirely for you, and so please let me know if there's something else that you want to hear, something that you are less enthused about, just anything. Starting next vlog, I'm going to start adding closed captions to these since there won't be the text alternative of the newsletters. So, yeah, that's it. Hope you have a good one. Looking forward to September. All right, you have a good one. Bye.